very tight-lipped to my team so far. You haven't given very much away before coming on this morning. Yeah. You're not fancying a crack at the job, are you?
No, okay. I won't be running. The thing I want to see out of this, I mean, look, this is probably the most unpredictable leadership election in history, but it's also one of the most important. Because if we don't get this right, we are going to lose the next election. We're going to be out of power for a long time. And so how do we get it right? I mean, first thing we've got to do is got to avoid any more ethical problems. I mean, if we have another integrity problem in the next 6 months or so, we may as well forget all the policy issues, all the terrific leadership, all the great eloquence that Grant Shapps has just been showing, for example, because it won't work. So that's way, way, way the most important thing. And I think, you know, it's a bit of a pity it's a very fast campaign, because I think all of the candidates have to go through the ringer on that. Secondly, we'll have some competence. This government has, I'm afraid, I mean, it partly because of COVID, it's not entirely its own fault, but, you know, passports, getting a passport, getting your driving licence, getting a GP appointment, all those things, is somebody's got to take a really hard grip of it. And the third one is the one, I think, which has probably already been on your station, I haven't seen it this morning, which is the issue of the policy. We've got the wrong economic policy. It's demonstrably wrong. You know, we're in recession, and it's got to change. And so that's and the people who come up with the best alternatives there are going to be the most important.
So who is your eye on then?
Well, I haven't finally decided yet. I'm down to about 2 or 3. I'll make up my mind in the next few hours, but I've got some facts to check first. So I'm not gonna. Well, you'll then ask me what the facts are.
Or will you give us a short list then? Come on.
The ones I'm thinking about: Grant, Jeremy Hunt, and Liz Truss. Those are 3. They've all got some experience, right? They've all got a degree of experience, which is very important. Competence, they say, is critical. The ethical issue is a bit of a problem if you've been in the cabinet for the last year. I mean, bear in mind, I called for Boris to go in January, not out of some sort of sudden surge of blood to head, but because I'd worked out that this disaster that we've now witnessed, this death of 1,000 cuts, that's what I said on the day, is going to happen. And so they're going to have to explain that, but also make sure that there's nothing else for them to get wrong. And there are people who see that we need to change the tax policy. Well, it's not just the tax policy, truth be told. I mean, the harsh truth is that the Treasury and the Bank of England have got inflation wrong badly. Have got the tax take wrong. The reason we've got the biggest tax burden is not just that they put in those policies, but they didn't actually realise quite how much tax we've taken out of the British people. Quite big errors for a government to make.
At the same time,
though,
you know, you're talking about inflation and you're also talking about tax cuts. I mean, tax cuts fuel spending, which fuels inflation, right?
No, that's not right. It's very bad economics, I'm afraid. It's astonishing that so many commentators have not put it. No, I'm not just you. I mean, you know, really sort of theoretically economic commentators have said that. It's not true. I mean, what's happening at the moment is vast amounts of money being taken out of the economy by too high taxes and very high prices being sucked out of the whole economy, which is why when the tax increases were due to bite, it was the first month then we had a downturn in the economy. Up until then, we have been doing better than Germany, France, Italy over the course of 6 years, and then suddenly, wallop, down it goes. Now, in the middle of that, you've got COVID, so it's a slightly doubtful set of numbers. But the argument is wrong. What we have to do is to bring the money supply under control, put interest rates up. That's quite painful, and of course, control the domestic pressures. You know, the summer of discontent we've got coming. Really, really tough stuff, and it's going to test the courage of any new leader. And that's the other thing that we're talking about, character, really. Yeah.
On the taxes, it was quite interesting, I thought, talking to Grant Shapps, who was pretty clear that he would pay for tax cuts by cutting government spending. Yeah. Do you have any concern that there's an awful lot of tax cuts being thrown around this morning alone by some of the candidates? Yeah. And how do you fund it?
Well, some of it, and there's a mixture of things. And yes, look, Every candidate will tell you more efficiency. We've been saying that for
Yes,
decades.
I mean, that's very... If we could work that one out, then, we'd be away.
It would have been simple, yeah. Every candidate will tell you, that they're going to cut this, cut that. Now, what's problematic? Number one, the Treasury got very badly wrong the financing of the COVID spending. It spent about 400 billion, and it's basically on a floating rate. It's almost like it's on an overdraft. They should have laid down war loans for that. You can still do it to some extent. It's twice as expensive now as it would have been, but you can do that. Not pay it off over 5 years, which is one of the issues I have with Liz, but over 50 years. That's a real issue. You've got to do that. You've got to focus the tax cuts on things that will deliver growth, because there is a trade-off. If you put taxes up so much that you cut growth, you actually then end up losing tax revenue. That's precisely what the current Treasury policy is going through now. And then you've got to bring some of these things under control. And there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about that.
We're out of time, but just before we go, what would be your one bit of advice to the candidates? You've obviously run in a leadership contest yourself.
Be straightforward. Don't overbig yourself up. I mean, we're hearing all sorts of sad stories about people's poverty-stricken background, where people who are probably richer than I could ever be in 1,000 years. So be straightforward. Don't try and make imaginary histories, and focus on what's right for the country.
OK, thank you very much, David Davis.